What is up, ROC Podcast Nation? Welcome back to another sizzling hot episode with yours truly at Real Mike Bell and my buddy across the desk here,
Ryan Argas.
That's right, the one and only. Guys, if you haven't noticed by now, which I am 100% sure you have because we talk about it all the time, but this show, the soundboard, the YouTube channel, that stuff right now is available, and it is sponsored by ptpgun.com. Ryan is reached into his own pockets to help get this show growing while we continue to grow without. So if you haven't already, head over to ptpgun.com and see what they have to offer there. Ryan, if you had to say what is the best product that ptpgun.com has to offer, what would it be?
Our one-stop shop.
One-stop shop, baby. So head on over there, find that one-stop shop, send Ryan a private message, and we'll get it taken care of. Guys, we've talked extensively over the past, months, essentially. It feels like forever, but we're constantly talking about, guns and humanitarian stuff and Joe Biden. And we recently released an episode called Where's Biden Hiding? Asking the question, is Joseph Biden presidential? And today, there's this emerging, it's a hot topic item, but it always is, right? It's always a hot topic item, and that is illegal immigration. And really, it's about migration, and then migrants, and then illegal migrants and illegal immigration. All of those terms need to be used at the same time.
Context matters.
Yeah, context does matter.
Isn't that what Jim Psaki said today? Context matters.
It is. And, we've said it before, and we'll continue to say it, guys. Control the language, control the culture. And if the left continues to decide what verbs and what nouns and what language is being used to describe illegal immigration, they can control the culture. They can control the perception. But regardless of how you think about it, the terms they do use, though, are kind of like, I guess they do make sense, right, Ryan? Like alien, migrant, those are words. But the emerging kind of topic right now is what's happening down on the border. And it's baffling to me, man. Ryan and I have talked in the past about, what would happen if you're walking your back 40 and you saw a group of people just kind of stumbling into your property? What would you say, Ryan? What would be the first question you ask them?
Who the hell are you? What are you doing in my backyard?
Right. And then if they didn't have any good and lawful reason to be there, what would you do?
Call law enforcement?
Or would you, if it was within your power, would you turn them away?
Yeah.
Would you ask them to get on the other side of your fence?
Yeah.
Sure. Right. And that's what I think 99%, I would argue that a majority of people would say that same thing. Like, if you have no good and lawful reason to be on my property, you need to be off my property. I'm not going to take you. I'm not, let me put it this way, Ryan. If some stranger showed up on my property without good and lawful reason, I'm not going to take them to your house, right? I'm not going to be like, here you go, we're just going to put them over here. And that's kind of what's happening at the border right now. You're seeing this mass influx of people come across without good and lawful reason, as according to the, what's that term I'm looking for? Why is it escaping me? Like, I was just talking about this. When you're escaping
accountability.
No, never mind. I'll get to that in a second. But what you're having all these people come up, and instead of turning them back to where they come from, we're taking them, or the federal government, if you will, is taking them and then placing them in somebody else's backyard. They're taking them and they're sending them to these cities across the United States with the anticipation that within X amount of days they're going to come and they're going to attend court, and then they could be processed accordingly. What the hell isn't that word? Well, it's like stuck
deflecting.
In my head.
I don't know.
No. There's somebody comes to our country because they're escaping tyranny and they're looking for
asylum seekers.
Asylum seekers. That's what the word I'm looking for. They're looking for asylum. Nailed it, Ryan. You're on point, buddy. Welcome back. Yeah, so, we're taking these people, we're putting them in all these other places. We've talked about sanctuary cities. We've talked about all these other places where people are willingly opening their doors to illegal immigrants because that's what they are. They're accepting them in, and then there's all of these crimes that are purported and acted because of these illegal immigrants. And we always ask the question, like, what would have happened if that person would have never been there, right? And we talked about, who was it we were talking about recently? It was that girl that was
The one murdered in California by an illegal immigrant.
Yeah, the one that was murdered in California. That guy, her and her dad were walking around in the Embarcadero in San Francisco. Can you mind pulling her name up real quick?
Kate Steinle.
Yeah, Kate Steinle, exactly. She was walking around the Embarcadero with her dad.
I'm not gonna lie. What is the Embarcadero?
The Embarcadero is just a region of San Francisco that's up underneath kind of the Golden Gate. It's northern San Francisco, so it's right on the bay. And that entire region right there is kind of like, I don't know, the boardwalk or whatever. It's like it's where the tourists go. Anyways, she was walking around up there, and there was this illegal immigrant that had already been deported 5 times back in the United States, had allegedly stole a gun from a law enforcement officer. I think it was like Game and Fish or whatever, the California's version of that. Stole the firearm. This is what he's alleging. And then accidentally discharged it, and the round ricocheted off the concrete, struck Miss Steinle, and she eventually died from those wounds. Now, because of a oversight in the court proceedings, he was essentially dismissed of those charges of murder, was charged with unlawful possession of a firearm for a felon. But there was some other jurisprudence that got screwed up there, and he was dismissed only to be deported again.
Is he back yet? Do we know?
We don't know.
We have no idea because our border is so unsecure.
Because it's so unsecure. That's just one case. You have the cases of rape and murder and gang affiliation. You have human trafficking, drug smuggling. You have firearms, smuggling. You have all of these other things that are going on because we can't control the situation at our border. And, I wanted to ask you the question, Ryan, like, if somebody walks into your backyard, what's the first thing you're going to ask them? And it's, what the hell are you doing here? And if they don't have a good and lawful reason, you're going to call the authorities to take them back wherever the hell they need to be, as long as it's not on your property. Well, the country is essentially our backyard. And right now, there are all these people coming into our yard without a good and lawful reason. And it doesn't appear that whatever the hell this current administration plans to do or thinks that is being done, it's pretty clear that's not happening, right? I pulled up some numbers here, and it's pretty staggering the amount of the influx of people that are coming into the United States from Mexico right now and Central America. It's staggering. If you look at the Trump administration, the highest surge that we saw there, his numbers were half of what they are today. If you look at the Trump administration, though, so looking at fiscal year 17 and 18, right, because he started office in 17, he had just over 300,000 apprehensions of undocumented immigrants. In fiscal year 18, he had just about 400,000. Now, we all know what happened in fiscal year 2019, right, Ryan? There was that caravan that came up. And a lot of people will allege that that was strategic, that there were parties that be, mainly from the left, that were promising them that if they came up, they could seek asylum here, right? And Trump swore, you remember the tweets, the freaking news conferences, all of that shit, tracking this caravan of hundreds of thousands of migrants moving up through Central America up to our southern border. Right? He tried. He used that to push for more money on the wall, which was continuously denied. Right? And that was, in 2019, that was the highest surge in at least in apprehensions. And you got to think, for every, 10 they catch, there's at least one that gets through, right?
I think there's a lot more.
You're probably right. I'm just throwing an arbitrary fact out there. But in fiscal year 19, there were just over 800,000 apprehensions. That was the highest it had been since 2007. All right. Now, in fiscal year 20, that number got down below 400,000. In fiscal year 21, we are already greater There are already more apprehensions as of today than there were in 20, in 18, in 17, in 15, in 12, in 11. There's already more today than there were in all of those years, right? And you got to ask the question, why? And we talked about it recently, Ryan. Biden had said in his running, in his campaign, there was language that he used that specifically incentivized people to come north, right? And then if you look at the COVID bill right now, the most recent relief bill that was just pushed out, that bill was voted on and it split party lines, essentially 50 to 49. Republicans were against it because there wasn't enough measures in those bills to prevent illegals from getting the same stimulus check that you and I and Johnny from down the block got, right? Now, I don't want to get into the stimulus package, but also prisoners got it. You tell me, you're on the block in prison, you're earning, 10 cents a day essentially, or $1 a day for making license plates or whatever it is. And then all of a sudden the president of the United States, along with the Democratic Congress, decides to give you $1,400 for what? What the hell did you contribute? How are you put out? You know what I'm saying? What are you getting relief from? How are you going to stimulate anything besides the commissary in the damn prison?
And they're trying to say that, like, oh, no, Biden has nothing to do with all these people wanting to migrate over illegally. He has nothing to do with the influx and stuff. But his actions and his words act differently. And there's so many people that, like there's this one picture we found, where there's a ton of people, and it looks like they're actually probably in a foreign country when this picture is taken, but there are dozens of people in this picture, and they're all wearing shirts with the Biden name and the way he did it for his campaign. It says, Biden, please let us in. They're trying to appeal to the
hearts.
dumb and the heart, the heart-filled Democrats and whatnot.
Yeah.
And they didn't put on their Trump let us in because they knew Trump wasn't going to do shit for them.
No,
it was because it's America first. So they're appealing to the Democrats. And imagine if Biden doesn't let them in. Oh my God, Biden's and they're not. He's not going to do that. He's not going to allow that to happen.
Right.
Those are tons of Democrat voters that are potentially waiting to join the party.
And the numbers, guys, are hundreds of thousands.
Yeah.
Hundreds of thousands. It's not 10 or 20. In the month of February, there were over 9,000 just children, 9,000 undocumented, unaccompanied minors arrived and were allowed through our backyard.
Yeah. What do you do when you can't get Americans to vote for you? You import foreign nationals.
And that, and there's a lot of truth to that, dude. There really is. This is, they're waving the Biden flag. Like they rose a flag out there, and okay. This episode isn't necessarily about the Democratic or the current presidency's policy on immigration. Okay, that is yet to be determined. What he's only been in a few months, but what we do know is within his first couple weeks, he executive ordered all of Donald Trump's stuff to be kind of OBE, obsolescent, and since then hasn't really put out his new plan. He recently talked about it at his first and only press briefing, last week or the week before that. And he doesn't have any plans. There was, Kamala Harris was asked on one weekend, hey, do you have any intentions on going down to the border? And she laughed. She's like, yeah, right, essentially.
Do you know who you're talking to?
Yeah. And then a few days later, Biden appointed her to oversee it. Right? Like, okay, she's got a lot of compassion. She's got so much compassion. She's not even willing to go down there and monitor the situation. Yet here she is in charge of it. And as I mentioned, I don't think that this episode is going to go down the policy path. What I want to focus on is this. Regardless of where you stand on this, left or right, on your policy at the border, what we have today is a crisis. We have a humanitarian crisis. Now, maybe there is some left agenda that is creating this crisis, and you could be pissed at that, and you could be pissed at those politicians, but that's not going to help the hundreds of thousands of people that are being, let's just look at the children, right? Because Really? I don't really care too much about the adults, Ryan. They can walk back into Mexico. They can get a job. Problem is Mexico doesn't want them either, right? They're literally putting them in vehicles and driving them to the border to get them out of Mexico faster. I'm concerned about those kids. You have, recently Ted Cruz, which is the Republican senator from Texas, recently went down to the border along with 18 of the other oversight committee to kind of get a feel for what was going on down there. Let me tell you why he had to do that. You know why? Why did the reason he went down there is because this presidency right now has a suppression tactic against the press, not allowing them to go down there and report the true conditions of what's happening at the border. And I don't know why. If the current presidency is trying to use this situation as some kind of political posturing, he is completely in the wrong. That is one reason why I could be mad at him. Because what would happen, Ryan? What do you think would happen to your grandma's heartstrings or whoever else's heartstrings if they saw the conditions that are going on at the border right now?
They don't want to, because they're in a position where they criticize Trump for this and that, but they are still allowing it to go on and or get worse. And they don't want people to see that. Transparency would kill them.
And that's what's happening. So, Ted Cruz has asked on several occasions, and guys, if you aren't currently in the new Facebook group that we built, it's what's it called, Ryan?
Right of Center, Conservative America.
Right of Center, Conservative America. Most of you that are listening have probably already discovered that, but if you haven't, head over there. I recently posted, I posted a series of 2 articles in that group. One of them was a letter that Ted Cruz wrote on the behalf of the Oversight Committee to the current President of the United States saying such. At the time, he was planning to take a delegation down to the border and was asking the president, essentially saying, hey, you need to allow press to attend us down there, and we need to get the real picture of what's going on down at the border out to the American people. Never got a response. In fact, what happened was the President of the United States ended up hiring some people to go and plant down there in those border facilities to oppress the inevitable visit by Senator Ted Cruz and his 18 members of the Oversight Committee. So as of a few days ago, I guess it's been about a week or whatever, but Senator Ted Cruz and 18 people did go down there and they videotaped and they live streamed and they did all this other shit down from the border. And what he found was appalling. The Donna, Texas Customs and Border Patrol facility is currently operating at 1,500% its capacity.
1,500%.
Its capacity. It was only built to hold 250, children. It's thousands past that. There's the Dallas Coliseum that is at max capacity right now. There are all of these facilities that are beyond max capacity. And what they're doing, I mean, if you imagine, and I don't want to get canceled by saying this, but if you could imagine, I think a lot of people have watched Schindler's List, or they've watched any of those movies where they show a whole bunch of people kind of packed nuts to butt, next to each other with really no room to move around. That's what is going on down there. They have these rooms that were built, essentially facilities that were built to hold 250 people are now over 5,000 people, nuts to butts, but the only thing separating them is the reflective blankets that we've all seen. And, what the left has done a great job here, as we said earlier, they're controlling the language. Instead of calling them cages, they're calling them cells.
They went from cells to cages back to cells.
Yeah, because cells sounds a lot better than cages,
It all depends on who's in the presidency.
Exactly.
Those cells, those cages existed when Biden was vice president, and now they're still here when he's a president.
That's right.
They don't want anybody to see that shit.
And, in total, currently, guys, the country is on track to see the highest number of migrants arriving at the southern border in the past 20 years, with the growing number of unaccompanied children crossing over. So I have a quote here, and this is from Mayorkas, who is the head of Homeland Security, I think. He says, "We are on pace to encounter more individuals on the southwest border than we have in the last 20 years. We are expelling most single adults and families. We are not expelling unaccompanied children." So if you look, let's just look at a year. Let's assume that over the next year, there's 10,000 migrants that come, 10,000 unaccompanied children come to the border every year or every month. Caught, okay? 10,000 that are apprehended. That's 120,000 a year. These are kids with nowhere else to go, nowhere else to turn, that are oftentimes hundreds, if not thousands of miles from their homes, right? Just kind of dropped off at the border. Like, this is where that bleeding liberal in me comes out. It's like I see these, I'm a dad, so are you. I see these kids and I'm like, all right, I understand that they're illegal immigrants and that they need to be processed as such. But at the same time, Ryan, let me ask you if you were walking in your backyard and you saw a kid lost, right? No other adults around, just kind of sitting there. Would you just pick them up and throw them over the fence and keep walking? What would you do? Now, just be honest, man. Let me see. Let Rock Podcast.
It'd be a long drive back to Mexico.
Let's hear. Let Rock Podcast Nation hear a little bit of your heart. I know what you would do, man. You take the kid. You'd probably take him inside. You check and make sure he's okay. Give him a blanket, something warm to eat, and you would do your best to try to figure out what the best path forward was for this kid, right? I think that most of you listening would do the same thing, and now amplify that 10,000, right? And that's just at that's just. It's crazy. It's a humanitarian crisis. Like, I want policy that's going to prevent this from happening. But the only way the policy is going to prevent it from happening is if we start dispelling the idea that if you come to the United States, it's a free lunch. And that's what Biden is not doing. So in the absence of that, how can people from right of center get more involved and start, like, I don't know, donating money or doing something, like Ryan likes to says, right? Put your pocketbook where your mouth is or something like that. How can we get involved? Because at the end of the day, I don't like seeing this. And I had to do just a bit of digging, because I do follow some of the Republican senators and stuff. And Ted Cruz has done a good job of keeping the public up to date on what's going on, because the presidency has actively suppressed the press's ability to get down there and show the American people what is truly happening down there. And in his press conference recently, he was even quoted as saying, yeah, there'll be transparency once we get it all figured out. All right. So how is that transparent? Like, I want 100% transparency from day one to day infinity. Yeah. I don't want transparency 100 days later.
We only want to show you everything once everything's good. We don't want to show you the good, bad, and the other. We just want to show you the good. And if we ever get to the good.
Yeah, and this is where the problem is. We already know, right? Right of center already knows that the Biden administration has screwed the pooch when it comes to immigration policy. All right, so what are you doing? Okay, got it. All right, I will never vote for you again if you only run on immigration policy, all right, because I know you can't fix it. But please show me what the bleeding heart liberals are doing to address these kids. How are we helping these kids out? And I want to play something, guys, and there'll be a link to the show notes for you to go and watch this video yourself. And if you're watching on YouTube, you should be able to just jump right into the video here. But I want to play something. I want you guys to listen to this. This is Senator Ted Cruz went down to the Donna facility to investigate what was going on and get some stuff on video. I'm going to play this audio and then I want to talk about it. So here you go.
Please respect. Please give dignity to the people. Please give dignity to the people.
So you work for the commissioner, your senior advisor. You were hired 2 weeks ago, and you're instructed to ask us to not have any pictures taken here.
Please respect the people,
because the political
rules.
Leadership at DHS does not want the American people to know it.
Please respect the rules,
You keep
sir.
standing in front of the pictures, so
Please
you don't want the
respect the
pictures
rules.
taken. The rules are arbitrary, and
Please
they're designed to keep the American people in the dark.
dignity and respect. That's all we ask.
Well,
dignity
no, it's
and
not.
respect.
You're asking, is this
Please-
dignity and respect? Look at
Please
these people.
give
There's
dignity
a
and
pandemic.
respect to the people.
Let me ask you, there's a
I
pandemic.
respectfully ask you, sir.
There is a pandemic. Is this
Full-hearted,
respecting the rights of these
full-heartedly,
kids?
I ask you. Please
Are you
respect
respecting the
people.
rights of these
This
kids?
is not a zoo, sir. Please don't treat the people.
You're right, and this is a
as such.
dangerous place.
Please don't treat the
And
people
your
like
policies,
this. That's all I ask
unfortunately,
for
are
you, sir.
trying to hide them. I understand
That's
you
all
were
I ask
instructed
you.
when 18
I
senators
ask you
came
to
down
please
here.
respect the people, give them dignity
I
and
respect
respect.
them, and I want to fix this situation.
We all want to
and
fix
the
this, sir. We
administration
don't
you're
want
working
this to
for is
happen
responsible for these conditions.
Please respect the people with dignity and respect,
And
sir.
I ask you to respect the people as well. This
I am
is not
respecting you.
respect.
I am respecting the
This
people.
is not respect.
So what you guys just heard there was, like I mentioned, Ted Cruz went down to the border. He took 18 of his members of the Oversight Committee, among other people, to do the American people a favor. Now, guys, I understand, especially if you're down there in Texas. I know we got some listeners down in Texas. A lot of you guys call Ted Cruz currently Cancun Ted, right? Because he bailed during this recent kind of polar vortex or whatever that assaulted Texas. But he's doing the American people a favor. And more importantly, he's doing these children a favor. He is putting these images of these conditions out there to the American people so that we could finally do something about it. You know, you have all of these organizations, dude. You have all of these groups of people like, you know, look at how many, I would argue, hundreds of millions of dollars were raised for the Black Lives Matter movement, right? It's because people are putting their pocketbook where their mouth is and they're actually getting out there and they're supporting something. Now, granted, Mike Bell, as an individual, doesn't support the BLM activist movement. And I'm on record of saying that. I fully support Black people. I don't support that movement. I think there's a lot of waste. I think that there's a lot of political posturing going on there. Regardless, the message I'm trying to portray here is this. When there is a need for people to get involved, the American people do a very good job of putting their money where their mouth is. And there currently is a need on the border right now for people to get involved and start finding a way to take care of these kids. And I don't know what that is, right? Like maybe it's, you know, people were bitching, man. Here's the thing, right? In the stimulus bill, there was a lot of money that was put off to put a lot of these kids and these migrants and stuff like that to start renting hotel rooms to put them in, right? There was millions of dollars put in there. And people had the audacity to bitch about that and say, oh, you're giving all this money to these migrants. You should have just kicked them out, right? Well, I challenge you. If you found a baby in your backyard, what are you going to do with it? You're not going to throw it out. You're going to take care of the damn thing.
Yeah,
right?
but continually taking care of the problem only perpetuates the problem. We have to let people know this is not acceptable. You cannot come here and accept a free lunch. Honestly, it sounds cold-hearted, but if you tell me you came from 500 miles away, well, we should bust your ass to where you're 700 miles away. I'm not going to bust you back to where you came from. I'm going to bust you, twice as far from there to make your life harder. Honestly, and we can't discriminate. We cannot discriminate based on age. So it doesn't matter what age they are. It sounds shitty, but again, if every time somebody shows up at our door and shit, no matter what they've said or done, we take care of them and we feed them, and we give them college, we do this, we do that. Why wouldn't they keep coming? Why wouldn't other people want to come? We have to set the precedent that this is not acceptable. You will not be, getting a handout. But honestly, it sounds cold. I understand it does.
I'm just trying to imagine in my mind right now the Customs and Border Patrol agent that is on that bus with 50 or 60 kids, driving them down to Colombia, opening the door and just sweeping them out with the broom and saying, sorry, we're out. I don't know, man. That would take some cold-hearted, and I know that there's some cold-hearted killers out there, brother. I've served with some of them, but that right there just seems, it doesn't seem
Do you disagree that helping every single one that illegally enters our country that doesn't encourage it? I think it encourages them to continue to do what they're doing. We have to put our foot down.
It does.
Even if everyone thinks that we're an asshole for doing it, it doesn't matter. I'd rather them think that we're an asshole and them stop doing what they're doing than just because people could say, "What? I got in a bar fight and I had to go to jail. You're an asshole." Like, okay, well, maybe when you get back out, you won't go and start a bar fight.
Yeah.
There can't be rewards for actions that we do not want to continue. There has to be consequences.
Well,
consequences aren't always great.
You're right. You're right. And I've got a little bit of background. I have experience on the border. As I've said in a few episodes, right? I was in the military, and one of my tours, which I could talk about now, I've been out for quite some time, but I was on the United States-Mexican border for 9 months. And part of that was acting as a deterrent force to prevent, essentially we were a blockade that funneled those that were trying to enter the country illegally. It kind of funneled them into these traps that the DHS had set. Department of Homeland Security, Customs and Border Patrol, ICE had set up, and I watched some crazy stuff, man. I watched, at the portion of the border I was patrolling in southeastern Arizona, the wall was up at that point. There was a portion of the wall that was built, and I watched through FLIR optics, in my tower, 45 feet up, looking out over the border, I watched, migrants climb this fence waiting for the Border Patrol truck, because a lot of you guys don't know it, but the border fence runs, but then there's like this, 30-yard or 30-foot scrub on each side that is just sand, right? And the reason they do that is because of what the Border Patrol does is they drag that sand with the, like you drag a baseball field.
So you just drive it by it and you see if there's any footprints.
You drive by it so you can see if there's any footprints, all right? And it's like that on both sides of the fence, right? And what you would see, man, is these migrants, illegal immigrants, they would climb the fence, or they would approach the fence, and we could see them through our night vision. We'd watch them come up, and then the Border Patrol would drive by, and then you would see these migrants like quickly scaling the fence and then jumping over. And this is a 20-foot tall fence, and they would hit. Some of them broke their legs. And instead of sitting there and waiting for Border Patrol to come back and pick them up or help with their broken legs, they legit, zombie crawled, across the street down into the scrub brush, man. And, and this is in, the high desert. It's cold as shit at night. And they're, they want to be in our country that bad where they're willing to suffer broken legs, broken arms, broken backs, and crawl through the scrub brush. I don't know what they're fleeing. I understand South Central and, America is a mess. But I don't know what they're fleeing, but
I've heard America's so damn disgusting and bad and racist. Why are these people fleeing to come to such a horrible country? It's crazy.
It is crazy. It is crazy. And I want to tell you something else about that in a little bit.
Yeah.
Remind me to bring that up what the Chinese said about us.
Yeah.
But, I watched it. I was on that border for 9 months watching, every third day I was pulling a 24-hour shift watching the border.
Yeah.
And the stuff I saw, there was a lot of cartel stuff. There was a lot of drug smuggling. There's a lot of stuff like that. But, it was crazy. It was crazy. And before we got there, so that was in 2010, 2011. Before we got there under the Bush administration, at the time, what they would do is they wouldn't do catch and release. They would catch you and they'd put you on a bus and they would drive you all the way down to like the farthest points of Mexico they could. They would drop you off there. That way, if you wanted to come back, you actually had to have some resources or have something in a way to get up here.
Wait, I'm sorry. Say it again. How far were they taking them?
To the furthest points of like Mexico and just dropping them off there and then coming back.
Why Mexico? Why don't we just take them down to Chile?
I don't know. It costs money,
Yeah.
right? Now you're paying some money, but
Yeah.
there now and then during that time, and then since then we've seen catch and release, and then under the Trump administration there was, decent protections put in place. There was this massive border wall that was built in, hundreds of miles of wall that now just has a dead end and people can just walk to the end of the wall and come around. There's all these voids in the wall. There's different stuff like that, but it's ridiculous. But again, I don't want to get into the policy. That's for a different episode. What I'm concerned about is the human trafficking, essentially, is what I think it is, crisis going on down there. This is human trafficking, and straight up, the Dems are complicit with the cartels in this. No children one day woke up and made a decision and then had the wherewithal, right, to make a 1,500-mile journey to the U.S. border. I can't even get my kid to freaking ride his bike around the neighborhood 5 times without complaining about it, right? And the cartels, they're engaged in this horrific practice of human trafficking, and who knows what these children are going through on the way under their control, and I could only imagine, right? And the Dems know this, and they keep looking the other way, man. They use the euphemism of migrants to avoid, exposing the appalling term of child trafficking. But they know it's human trafficking, and in the most horrific way, and the Dems are completely complicit in it. And then you see, it just perpetuates the cycle. Are these smugglers, like, I'm trying to imagine, like in Honduras or even Chile, if you want to go that far down, but Central America, Colombia and Panama and different stuff like that. Like, what's a parent's decision to say, okay, I'm just going to take my kid and I'm going to give him to somebody else and I'm going to allow them to travel the hundreds, thousands of miles up to the border with a hope and a dream, right? Like, I couldn't imagine doing that for my kids. The situation would have to be pretty damn dire. So, like, I think that there is a percentage of these people, these children, that are being kidnapped from their homes and then brought up here by smugglers, understanding that they're going to be released. And then there is some collusion at work, maybe not with the government. I hate to
put it
believe
past it.
I hate to believe that the government's involved here, but there is some collusion between, agents on the south of the border and agents north of the border working for the cartel to claim that they're family members, so that now these children are kidnapped by the cartel, brought to the border. What Department of Homeland Security is doing now is they're turning these children over to the Department of Health and Human Services, and then they're placing them with the family member on this side of the border.
I think you kind of brought it up a little bit. You said you don't think you'd hope that the U.S. government wasn't working with the cartels on this. Look up Operation Fast and Furious, and that is where I'm sure you generally know, but where the U.S. government worked with and sold firearms to the cartels, and one of them was even used to kill a CBP agent. So don't put anything past the U.S. government. Like, as soon as you said that, I started kind of laughing at myself. Like, no, that actually is a pretty good idea. That may very well be at hand. Honestly, I don't put it past them.
I just hate to be that skeptical all the time, Ryan. There was a time in my life, dude, where I was so so skeptical of anything that came out of the politician's mouth, man. And my life became like miserable, dude. I was encumbered by this constant like worry that the government is just up to no good constantly. And I couldn't live that way. Like, I have to have hope and faith that there are good people in the government that are trying to do the best thing possible. I just have to live that way, dude.
Yeah, no,
Right?
I know. I don't trust the government, and I do acknowledge that they're all shit. And then, I don't know. I don't worry about it. Like, I'm not one of those, like, the conspiracy theorists and running around, like, worrying shit, tinfoil hat. Like, no, like, there's horrible people. There's horrible things going on. I don't trust any politicians. But at the same time, too, life goes on, I'm not going to die a worried person. I'm just going to realize that shit does exist.
What I'm thinking here is that and I think I drew it out pretty clear, but I just want to make sure that my message, what my hypothesis here is actually explained.
Yeah.
I think that there are cartel members south of the border that are kidnapping these children from their parents. They're bringing them north, knowing that the Biden administration isn't going to send them back. And then they're colluding somehow with people north of the border to act as if they are family members. And then they're taking these kids, right? Again, there's probably some false promises there. These kids probably don't even know that they're being trafficked. And then once they get into the home of the person that is supposed to be their family, that they probably had to memorize their name and all this other shit, saying, all right, look, you need to memorize the name because we're going to put you in their house. And once you're in their house, you're free, right? And then that happens, and then all of a sudden that child is sold into some kind of slavery, sex trade, something like that. And I would be willing to believe that some portion of what is happening with the entire size and scope of this, I think that a portion of it follows that exact same narrative.
Hey, Epstein didn't kill himself, so there is some truth there.
Right. Oh, man, did you go down the rabbit hole? I saw somebody post the other day this rabbit hole about
the Evergreen Bank.
Evergreen. Oh my God! I started reading
we should
that.
have a whole podcast just on that.
Nah, dude, it'd be a whole podcast on whoever that person was. Me calling them a dumbass the whole time because oh my God, like if that crap can really happen, like dude, we're all screwed. You know what I mean? But. Man, we've been a little bit all over the place here at Rock Podcast Nation. We hope you're sticking with us. Real quick, guys, if you haven't already, head over to the website, rockpodcastnation.com, and pledge your support. Ryan and I, we come out here week after week, try to stay on top of everything that we think aligns with the right of center narrative, and we want to get that message out there. We want to get people talking. We built the Facebook page. We built the group. We're getting, nearly 1,000 people there. People are talking about the stuff that we're talking about. We want to get the message out there. And one of the ways that you could help us do that, besides just sharing this episode with your friends, is going over there and pledging your support. What that does, guys, it's small. It's like $10, I think, for the lowest plan we have. In fact, you could try it for a week. But essentially what that does, it gets you unlimited access to all of our exclusive content. And if you could do that, we'd really appreciate it. It really helps us just continue the mission here that is right of center. Back to the migrant issue here. Ryan, let me ask you, man, what do you think would be the first step? Like if I had to ask you, like, Ryan, you're in charge for today. You're king of the world. You're king of the United States for the day, right? Nobody can stop you from doing anything. What is the first thing you would do to address the current situation at the border?
Strict enforcement and deportation, and again, not just deporting them back to their home record. I kid you not. I'm gonna deport them. What's your home record? Okay, that was 727 miles away. All right, go ahead and deport them to 1,454 miles away. Honestly, or shit. Find like, hey, you came from south of the border. Okay, you're from where? Okay, got you. All right, now we're gonna put you on the other side of the Atlantic Ocean. Where's the bleed? What is there any bleeding heart countries over there that are all like about this type of immigration stuff? Hey, drop them off there. I bet you one, they aren't going to come back right across that Atlantic Ocean, and two, if they do, they're not going to come right back to our United States and stuff because they're going to go right back down to where they were sent, wherever the hell that is on the other side of the Atlantic. There has to be strict enforcement. Straight ruthless enforcement. We're not killing them and stuff, but hey, drop them off at a nice, German base and stuff over there, and let them do their thing and stuff. Let them bring them in and stuff. I'm sure they could use some great workers over there. Germany seems to be pretty fucking lazy, so
not Germany. I think you're talking about France.
France too, yeah.
And I think France and some of those European countries, they have opened their arms up during the Syria, Libyan, all of those conflicts that were going on. There were a lot of migrants that left those countries that literally were looking for asylum because those people were blowing themselves apart, and those European countries did accept them. I think Italy was another one. But I have to ask the question, and I'm not smart enough on this, Ryan, but I want to ask you, and it's going to tie into something else, right? In a recent episode, we were talking about mass shootings, and you said, well, what law did these people break? What law could be written to stop that could have prevented that from happening?
Yeah.
What law could we write today to prevent 800,000 apprehensions of illegal immigrants a year?
We can't. There's no additional law. But how you enforce the laws that they maybe already are breaking, that's how you stop this shit. It's not by making more fucking laws, because laws are only respected by those who, that respect them.
So
you build that respect in by enforcing it. When you fuck up, you're done. You're gone. You're on a C-130. You're going across the Atlantic Ocean. Have fun swimming back. That's how you do it. Not by making more pointless laws. They're not going to, oh my God, I broke those 10 last time. The guy that killed Case Stanley, he had been deported 5 times, killed her, got, let off on that charge too. He don't give a shit about no damn laws. There's no laws going to stop him. It's how you enforce the laws that may be already on the books.
That's true.
That's it. It's how you enforce it, not by more laws. More laws is not going to fix it. Doesn't matter what you're talking about, whether it's guns, whether it's illegal immigration, whether it's DUI or whatever. It's how you enforce the laws you may already have on the books. Now, if there's no law at all dealing with whatever the situation is and stuff, like, there's nothing regarding immigration stuff, then we got to make something so that we can enforce it. But there are already tons of laws in the books. There's thousands and tens of thousands of laws in the books in general. It's how you enforce them, but not making more laws.
Okay. So has your daughters decided to try to play with fire yet, or touch the stove when it's hot?
The one touched the stove. Yep.
Right. So, and I know it's kind of barbaric.
They did it one time.
I know it's kind of barbaric, and some of you guys might scoff at this shit. But when I was growing up, and Ryan, I'm assuming you too, when your parents would hold your hand over the fire and say, "See, don't touch it. It's hot." Right. And that's something you have to teach somebody.
Yep.
The punishment has to deter somebody from wanting to commit the crime.
Yeah.
And in a future episode, we'll go into the United States prison system and the privatization of the prison system and get into a lot of that. But for now, let's look at it like this. As you said, the punishment for violating the crime needs to be such that people are afraid to reoffend.
Yeah.
And I think you're onto something there with taking them further from,
Yes.
making their journey harder and harder and harder. Yeah. But that's like a fix. How do we deter it from happening in the future? Sure, that would probably deter some people.
Yeah.
But what if we made it so incredibly hard? What if we completely compromised your life if you illegally immigrated? You know what I mean? And we put you on a work farm or something like that, right? Put you on
a barge and tow it out to the middle Atlantic. Just leave it there. If you drift back, you drift back. If you don't, survival of the fittest.
So, guys, this is an emerging topic, and we will be covering this more in the future. If you have anything to say, if you have any opinions about what we should be doing, if you've got like a left-leaning buddy or something like that that has like some leftist talking points that you could pull off and send over our way.
Or if you got a right-leaning buddy with a bleeding heart like Mikey.
That's right. We would love to hear from you. Head over to the Facebook page. That's Rock Podcast, just anywhere, at Rock Podcast Nation. Head over to the Facebook group, Right of Center, Conservative America. And let us know, guys. Subscribe to the show, share with your friends, and with that, we're out here.
And if you haven't done so already, find us on YouTube.
Stay strapped or get clapped, baby.